Hey everybody, this is Kirsten here. Welcome back to the Balanced Vibes podcast. Before we start, I would like to ask you, do me a little favor. So if you like this podcast and if you're listening to it on your podcast app, please leave me a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps this podcast reach more people. And this is really important for the growth and for, so that more people find out this helpful information. The other thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, what you can do is to subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed yet. And also please share the word with other people too, other women specifically, because like I said, it is my passion to get the word out about healthy living and what is actually possible. It's hard to see how many women are struggling with health and fitness and really believing that the only way to get better is to diet hard and work out even harder and do all these exhausting things and just like be kind of mean to themselves, right? If they're not accomplishing what they thought they should accomplish. It's just a really difficult mindset to be in. And a lot of times the metabolic dysfunction we cause ourselves by just stressing our body so much because we don't have the right information. It's just really bad. So I really want women to find a healthier approach to to accomplish their body composition goals and health goals in general. And I think this podcast can help them a lot with that. So if you have been listening for a while and you have found this episode or this podcast in general helpful, then please help me share the word. Actually, on that note, I also want to read one of the recent podcast reviews and it was really awesome. I love reading them. So thank you so much for everybody who is leaving a review. So this one says, a great podcast with focus on sustainable results. I'm so thankful I found Kirsten and her podcast. After years of fad dieting and gaining and losing the same weight over and over again, I'm finally seeing real results. Also, what I'm doing is sustainable. Listen to Kirsten and follow her advice, and you won't be sorry. So thank you so much for this beautiful review. It really means a lot to me. And this is exactly what I am trying to do here. So we are getting to the end of the year now. It is December 2023. And I think a lot of people are probably tempted to, start a new diet when January 1st comes. And we talked about it a little bit with one of the recent episodes with John Hiron. And we talked about how this approach, like this panic dieting, is not going to get you too far. You have to do other work first. You have to do the self improvement and understanding who you are, what drives your goals, what drives your actions. You have to do a little bit of that work first before you jump into dieting. And today, what we're going to talk about is actually a couple of diets that so many women are tempted to do. And I would say just stay away from them if you want to have sustainable results. And these two diets are super popular and they are not healthy for physically active women. So what are we talking about today? They are intermittent fasting and then keto diet. And what I'm going to read you from, a couple of quotes from this book. This book, I'll show you if you watch it on YouTube. It's called Next Level, Your Guide to Kicking Ass, Feeling Great, and Crushing Goals Through Menopause and Beyond. So this is written by Stacy Sim, and it has a lot of great information in here. However, I will say that I don't agree with everything in here. There's certain things that I would definitely do differently, but we don't have to agree with everything, right? And I approach like any new research that I learn from, any new book, any new person that I learn from, whether it is on social media or the websites or whatever literature it is. My approach is always, absorb. It's kind of like this Bruce Lee saying goes, that absorb what's useful, discard what's useless, and add what's specifically your own. So this is my take on these things, like wherever I learn something. But I think the nutrition part here is really good, and especially when she describes the background of intermittent fasting and the keto diet and why these things really are not helpful for physically active women and why physically active women should really stay away from these things, especially 40 plus perimenopause, menopause age. And I understand why women are very tempted to go this direction of intermittent fasting and keto because they promise relative quick results. And also, if your body starts changing, right, because the hormones do shift, obviously, and changes start to happen, you may feel like it's like you have no control over this thing at all. Like, how can I lose any weight? I'm just so desperate. No matter what I do, it's not working. And so now when you hear about this intermittent fasting or keto that promise that you're going to get results relatively quickly, then of course you do that. You jump on that train and you just want to go with it. And it's not like most cases that I see, it's not going to end too well. So I'm going to read you a little bit about the intermittent fasting and then the keto diet, and then just add a little bit of my own comments to it. And then at the end of the podcast, I will tell you what are the things that I recommend and that you do instead of jumping on these popular diets. So Stacy Sims, in her book, she talks a little bit about the intermittent fasting history, like how it came to be, and the science and the research, especially the research part. So if you don't know what intermittent fasting is, it is basically restricting your calorie intake, the time when you eat, to a small amount of time during the day. And there are different ways of doing it. Some people fast for 20 hours and eat only in the small window of 4 hours. But I think the more common one is to fast 16 hours and then eat in that 8-hour window. So this is what a lot of women are doing as well, hoping to lose more body weight and body fat. So fasting is a part of most religious practices. So this is definitely a thing. So I think for like spiritual practice like that, you're practicing detachment from food, it's probably a great thing. And because it is part of most bigger religions that I'm aware of, I'm not going to argue about this benefit. I'm sure it is there, because otherwise it wouldn't be practiced so commonly. Now, using intermittent fasting for weight loss, though, is a totally different story. It has nothing to do with spiritual practice or practice of like detachment and seeing what else arises and how do you connect yourself. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a hope to lose body weight quickly and hopefully keep it off. But most of the time, this doesn't work. So Stacy Sims talks about the research, right? And I'm going to read you a little bit from this book. So some of the first research started coming out in 1930s. This was the time of war and, of course, economically difficult times. And scientists wanted to see what would happen to people's health if they restricted their food intake for economic reasons. And now this is an important part, what comes next. As was standard practice, they only included men in their human studies. They found that restricting calories by about 20% was beneficial for health. Follow-up research, which was also done on men, confirmed that calorie restriction leads to increasing telomere health. So telomeres are the ends of your DNA, right? The region of the DNA that tells you about your longevity, right? Basically, that's how you can put it shortly. So calorie restriction also appeared to increase autophagy, which is the body's way of cleaning out damaged cells, and just like in general, cell regeneration. So they saw good results on these men. But remember, this was men, and how intermittent fasting impacts men and women is actually different. So now she continues on to say, more recently, medical scientists have been investigating intermittent fasting as a way to help people with obesity, and they are studying now both men and women. So this is newer research. And so what are they finding is that first of all, they want to see if they can help these people who are overweight or obese, if they can help these people to reduce the so-called bad cholesterol and then improve their blood glucose levels, right? So this is the focus. Now, here are the results. Generally speaking, the men in these studies did really well with calorie restriction. Regardless of age, they had improved insulin sensitivity so that they were at lower risk for diabetes. Awesome, right? Really good. So sedentary men, obese or overweight, their insulin sensitivity improved. Awesome. They were at lower risk for diabetes. They also had lower LDL, which is the, so to speak, bad cholesterol levels, which is good. They had better cell regeneration, and they had lower levels of oxidative stress. right? So that their cells were protected from free radical damage. So this was all on men. And also a couple of other interesting things. They also had better memory. They showed better memory. So it's awesome, right? It's like, wow, this is like a magic key here. Let's start using it. Now, the second part is how this thing worked on women. So what does the more recent research show? Let me remind you again, the past research was only done in men. Now the newer one includes both. So she says here, when you look at sedentary women, there was no benefit for insulin sensitivity from calorie restriction. Okay. Sedentary women, there was no benefit for insulin sensitivity from calorie restriction. In fact, women who had high blood sugar and were on the cusp of becoming diabetic actually saw a worsening in their insulin sensitivity and blood sugar. Okay. So already those women who had higher blood sugar levels, maybe like pre-diabetic or going that direction, they actually saw worsening in their insulin sensitivity. I mean, this is the last thing you want when you already have problems with that. Now you're making it worse because you're fasting, right? So poor blood sugar readings and worse insulin sensitivity. Now, there's one good thing. The plus side was that women saw increase in their good HDL. So HDL is the good type of cholesterol, so to speak. So this was it, improvement in that, but there was no shift in the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, so to speak, right? So one got a little bit better and the other one didn't get better. Unlike men, women had minimal, if any, improvement in autophagy. So the cell regeneration, no improvements there. And they actually had increased oxidative stress, right? So it's kind of pretty much the opposite. So that's so interesting to see how men and women in that sense, like when it comes to fasting, respond completely opposite. And again, one more thing, whereas fasting had adverse effects on their endocrine system. Okay, what is endocrine system? That's your hormonal system. And how many women are telling me this? My hormones are a mess. And so we know, of course, in perimenopause and menopause, the hormonal shifts are starting to happen. Estrogen declines, which makes the muscle building a little bit harder, but not impossible. You can gain muscle. Also, 40 plus, it absolutely is possible. But if your hormones are already declining and you're throwing intermittent fasting into it, then it does have a negative impact on your endocrine system. So you're doubling it. You're making it worse, right? So don't do that. It also says there, women's thyroid function slowed down and took their metabolism with it. Okay, so does it kind of ring a bell here? I have a slow and sluggish metabolism. What's going on with that? Well, if you are doing a lot of things already that are really stressful for the body, and you're adding in intermittent fasting, then your thyroid will react to it. And thyroid is the biggest thing that regulates your entire metabolism. So your metabolic rate goes down. That's why you have slow and sluggish metabolism, right? Because you're stressing yourself and you're probably also fasting. So all these things are very interesting. And you see the big difference between sedentary men, whose everything got better basically, and sedentary women. The only thing that got better for them was that they had more that good kind of triglycerides, right? The HDL, good kind of cholesterol, and nothing else really. Now, the picture gets more interesting when we talk about active women, women who exercise. And here's what Dr. Stacy Sim has to say. If you exercise on top of fasting, which is what many women try to do to lose weight, all of these negative effects become amplified. That's pretty much the opposite of what you're looking for as a menopausal woman struggling to maintain a healthy metabolism and good metabolic and cardiovascular health. Okay, so think about it, right? There is evidence to it, and a lot of people might argue that, but I did so well with intermittent fasting. And my question is, for how long? Was it 2 months? I believe it. Yeah, I believe that you lost some weight there. And maybe you saw your abs or something else, maybe temporarily you felt, like you were thinking a little clearer. But what happened then? Those who kept going for years, what happened? What happened then? And in my personal coaching, I have a lot of women who come from this one certain um, program that has them fast 16 hours. And I have not had a person who tells me that they got worse since we started including breakfast. So we stopped the 16-hour fast. We started doing normal overnight fast, typically 11 to 12 hours, eating in the morning, then working out, or sometimes working out in the evening. But the point is that you don't do fasted workouts, and I haven't had a single person telling me that they got worse. Everybody gets better from it. You have to start paying attention to it, and understand the studies and the research that supports the fact that for women it's not as beneficial as it is for men, let alone physically active women, in whose case these negative impacts just compound. And I don't know if you have this experience, but I can tell you from my personal experience, I see how for men, and in my home, specifically my husband, like how he can just naturally intermittent fast and be absolutely fine with it. And I cannot. I feel miserable, right? Not that I'm even trying to fast, but when I did in the past, or like, it wasn't good for me. And he can go easily, until noon before he eats. And I cannot. I eat around 7 or 8 a.m. usually. And if I had to stretch it till noon, I feel really bad. I feel terrible. And I know now, I know the science behind it too, but also just like my own personal experience shows me that this is not what I should be doing. And so maybe you have a similar experience with your husband or boyfriend who can do it like easily. And for them, it just comes easy. Oh, yeah, I'm not hungry. I'm not even thinking about food. And I'm over here like, what? Like by the time you have your first meal, I've had 2 meals and a snack. It's normal. It's normal for women to eat more regularly. Don't be afraid of it. And you do not have to be fasting. Okay. Now, the second part that I wanted to talk about today is that keto diet that is so, so, so freaking tempting for so many women. So, as we know, keto diet is typically a diet that doesn't allow you to eat more than 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. And that's very, very little. I don't think that anybody should be eating. Okay, I'll take that back. Not anybody, but active women should not be eating this low amount of carbs, even if it's just once or twice a week. Why? Why are we doing this? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm reading again from this book a couple of paragraphs. So she says here that without carbohydrates supplying blood glucose, the keto diet forces your body to produce energy by breaking down stored fat molecules called ketones in the liver. This process is called ketogenesis, which is where the name comes from. So the idea here is that, maybe you get into, 40 plus, 45 plus, and so on. You have more of that belly fat. So now the keto diet supposedly helps you to just burn more fat and turn that around, which sounds really, really amazing, right? Also, important to notice that the original research on the ketogenic diet was done on men, surprise, surprise, specifically metabolically unhealthy men who had obesity and or diabetes, right? And the research that they did was designed to see if they could get their blood sugar under control and lose weight quickly on a keto diet. And it did work. So again, just like we talked about previously about intermittent fasting, it did work on this sedentary, metabolically unhealthy men population, right? Now, also, she says it does work in sedentary women. In the small amount of research that's been done on postmenopausal women, the keto diet does reduce weight gain, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce cravings for and food moods. In other words, hangriness, right? That's what she says. Now, okay, that's cool. It might work for sedentary women too. But what this research doesn't show is how keto affects women who are training and exercising, right? So it doesn't work the same way for men as it does for women as it does for men. And what Dr. Sims points out here is that your body uses carbohydrates to kickstart fat burning, right? It kickstarts fat burning. So even if you're primed to use fat for fuel, and for women more so than men already, they are primed to use more fat as fuel anyway, you still need carbohydrates to access your fat burning metabolism. And now maybe the most important part. Denying your body carbohydrates during exercise is a huge stress. Research shows the keto diet has an unfavorable effect on muscle fatigue on women, And also research shows markers of bone remodeling are impaired after short-term low-carb, high-fat diet. Okay, so two things here. Muscle fatigue, right? More muscle fatigue. And again, something that I see all the time, those who have been doing like no carbs or very low carb, sore, achy, tired workouts are crap because they just don't have energy. And now think about it, our goal should be to build muscle, shouldn't it? So how can we do that effectively if we have this severe muscle fatigue all the time because we're not fueling, we're not giving our bodies the quickest source of energy, which is carbohydrates? How are you going to build anything? And the other point, bone remodeling is impaired. I mean, this is the worst news ever, right? Because as our estrogen starts to decline, we start losing bone mass if we don't do anything about it. So we have to strength train and we have to eat carbohydrates because we don't want to lose bone density, right? And it does happen naturally, a little bit will happen, but you can slow this bone loss down significantly if you feed your body the appropriate nutrients and if you lift weights. A little bit of high like impact training, like jumping or like, yeah, jumping or like a switch, a quick change of direction type of movement, these can help with bone density too. But strength training is definitely one big one, and then getting your carbohydrates too. Okay, so these things are important to understand. Also, what is important to understand is the part that cortisol plays in all this. So what we know is that women who are in perimenopause and menopause age, they naturally already have higher level of cortisol. So this is the stress hormone, right? And so what happens when you just put more exercise, and then you cut out carbohydrates and maybe you fast at the same time too, all this actually rises your already naturally elevated levels of cortisol, right? So this is bad. This is bad for women because it just makes everything even worse. If you keep increasing that stress in the form of the things that I just mentioned, it just keeps your it keeps you in this like, sympathetic mode all the time, which is the high alert mode. And you're going to be having harder time relaxing, and you're also going to be more in this catabolic state. Catabolic means muscle breakdown state, but you want to be more anabolic. So anabolic is more when you're rested and relaxed and you have better muscle building ability. But every time when your cortisol is sky high, you are in a catabolic state, and it's freaking hard to build muscle. So you're breaking down muscle, probably bone too. So your thyroid is depressed and your body actually starts storing more body fat. And this is exactly what I see all the time, right? Like I'm doing the fasting, I'm doing the keto, I'm doing the high intensity workouts. Why am I getting more body fat? Well, one part of it is because your cortisol is just high, your thyroid is overworked, your adrenals are overworked. So don't do this stuff. So anything that drives your cortisol up in moderation, right? Short term, of course, when you exercise, it will go up. If you have a stressful moment, of course, it will go up. Cortisol even goes up in the morning when you start waking up. These are the natural fluctuations, but don't put yourself into these situations where cortisol is chronically elevated all the time so that you can never relax and you cannot like put your body in a state that supports muscle building. You're in the opposite state, right? And you don't want to be there. You need to build that muscle. Okay, so if I don't want you to do these diets, please don't, then what are the things that I want you to do? And I'll keep it very, very simple today. I'm not going to give you like crazy, like fancy, detailed protocols or macro numbers, but I will tell you this. If you've always been eating less, right? If you've always been like dieting and looking at, oh my God, how can I cut? Go in the opposite direction and start very slowly increasing your food intake, and especially protein. Most women are under eating that and not even realizing that they're getting like 70 grams a day. So start increasing your protein, increase your food intake in general. Let go of those freaking food fears that you've been carrying around all the time. You don't need them. You don't have to be afraid of food. You don't have to be like obsessively thinking, oh my God, is 2 eggs a day bad? Should I only have one? Should I leave the yolks out? Can I, like these obsessive thoughts. You can have these foods and you have to increase, very likely you have to increase if you've been under eating for years. And then the really important part is focus on putting muscle on your body, right? Get strong. Stop worrying so much about how little you weigh and get more interested in how much weight can you put on your bar. This will get you where you want to be, right? This will put some muscle on you. This will give you that shape that you've been wanting to have for your body. This is what helps you to regulate your hormones too. This is what will help you to grow, increase your bone density again. And in some cases, it has been shown that it can even reduce the menopause symptoms such as hot flashes and so on. So there's not a ton on this topic, but there is a little bit. So it may be helpful with these too. So just take the better approach, especially when it comes to 40 plus, like hammering your body with more stuff, especially like the super intense nutrition diets, nutrition protocols. It's not where you want to be. You actually want to support your body. Think more like in terms of nourishing my body and taking care of it and giving what it needs versus hammering my body, trying harder, like eating even less. It's not going to serve you. And it is super counterintuitive. I'm totally aware of that because all our lives we've been told that eating less is what you need to do. And it's not always. If you're already eating less, then adding a crazy diet on top of that, which takes your calories down even more and reduces your eating window even more, it's not beneficial for you. Okay, so if you need any help, I am super happy to help you. This is my passion. This is what I like to do. I like to help women to get out of this hole that is called over dieting and over stressing their bodies. You can do a lot better. You will get to a lot better place. It may not be a super easy ride. It may not be like, oh, I started losing weight immediately when I started eating more. It's not maybe going to be exactly like this right from the beginning, but what you come out of it, what you get out of it once you're on the other side of it, you're going to have so much better hormonal health. You're going to have much more muscle that looks good on you. You're going to just feel better about yourself. You feel more empowered and you feel strong. So this is really what I want for you. All right, this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. And once again, please share this podcast with your friends and family. I really, really appreciate your support so that we can have more eyes and ears on this podcast. All right, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.